Hello, everyone. This is History with Hilbert, as always, and today we're in for a treat. I've got a very special guest. In fact, on the show today we have Kevin from Leornende Eald Englisc, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Old English. I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's dead interesting, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. I know I will. So, how are you today, then, Kevin?
Well, I'm quite good, thank you. Before I begin, I would like to say thank you for having me on the show. But Old English, what is Old English? Well, Old English is the language of the Anglo-Saxons. It was spoken from the 5th century to the 11th century. It was spoken in England and in lowland Scotland. As well, it's really important to point out that it is a Germanic language, and it's very similar to modern German, Dutch, Icelandic, and other Germanic languages.
Okay, that's actually really interesting. So, for those of you who don't know, the term that Kevin used was Anglo-Saxon, and the Anglo-Saxons came from four different tribes, or some say more, but four main tribes that came from Northern Europe. So we have the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, and the Frisians. And these tribes all came over after the Romans left Britain, and they settled in Britain. Some people think it was more like a migration, like they came over and they were all happy and dandy with all the Celts. Other people don't quite think it was that nice and that they slaughtered all the Celtic population. But at the end of the day, we come across these Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. So in the north, we have a kingdom stretching down from about Edinburgh region to the Humber, which is called Northumbria because it's north of the Humber. Underneath Northumbria, we have the kingdom of East Anglia, in what is now still called East Anglia, and no prizes for guessing which tribe settled in East Anglia. Then we also have the kingdom of Wessex, which was inhabited by the Saxons, and the kingdom of Mercia, which was also inhabited by the Anglians.
That's right. That's right. And from these kingdoms is when Old English really emerged. I mean, and it's funny because Northumbrian dialect and Mercian dialect, they both come from, well, the Angles, and it's why they're termed today as the Anglian dialects. From in Northumbria, I should say, or Magna. These are the names of those kingdoms in Old English. And then in the south you have West Saxa, which is Wessex as we know today, and that kingdom and their dialect.
Yeah. So, what are the main differences between these different dialects of Old English? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
To start off briefly, that with the West Saxon dialect of Old English, that there is a usage of the word "on" as a preposition. Like for example, like I'm going on the road, or going on this, I'm going on
Going
the
on a rave,
box.
yeah.
Yeah, or whatever you may pick. But as for the Anglian dialects, you have more of the usage of "in." So I'm going in somewhere. He was in the store, or he was in
Okay.
the lake. And as well, another brief difference between the two is that in the Anglian dialects, you have the usage of the verb to be in the context of like how we say we are, and you are. Well, it's more prevalent in these dialects that you have a thu art, or in some cases in Northumbrian dialect you have a thu arth, or you have we aron, to say we are. And whereas in West Saxon it's more German, like I would imagine. It would be more like saying like we sin, like we are. As for Kentish, from what I know about it, I mean, it has actually more similarities to the Anglian dialects.
Okay.
Um, yeah, which is interesting. But
Could this be because of the geographical location as well? Because of course
kind
the
of, I
Jutes and
mean,
Angles live close together, sort of thing.
maybe. Well, the thing is with languages, the further you go back, the more similar they are,
Mm.
and the differences are very slight. An example of this. In Old English with the West Saxon dialect, you have nicht for night, as in day and night,
Yeah.
and then you in the and I believe in Northumbrian dialect or Mercian, one of the two, that nacht, like kind of nacht, is means night as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like how people today in Yorkshire, they say they say nat, But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
but other parts of Yorkshire they say I'm going. It's to neat. Neat. So I mean there are different variations.
So, what type of a language was Old English? Well, as Kevin said earlier, Old English was a Germanic language. And other Germanic languages that are still around today are, for example, Dutch or Danish or Norwegian. So it's all these kinds of languages. And back at the time when Old English was spoken, it was in the branch of the Germanic tree that was called West Germanic. Now, if you're thinking West Germanic, there must be an East Germanic and a North Germanic, and you'd be absolutely right. For example, in the North Germanic tree, we've got the language Old Norse, which was the language that was spoken by the Vikings. And as you know, the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons weren't the best of friends, although it's likely that they could have understood each other at least to a certain degree. But this video is about Old English, and as such we'll be having a look at the West Germanic side of the Germanic language tree. And Old English is part of the Anglo-Frisian branch of the West Germanic tree.
And English and Frisian today are like the most closest languages to each other. Many of the spellings and just the words are just they're very similar. And for those of you who don't know, that Frisian is the language spoken in northern Netherlands and in northern Germany.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, in Frisian there's the word beam, and beam is spelled B-E-A-M. And native English speakers will know that a beam can mean a beam of wood, and beam in Frisian means tree. So you see that the meaning is only slightly changed,
Of course.
Yeah.
May I interject?
Oh, of course, yeah.
In Old English, Beam, it means tree as well, which is a cognate of modern German Baum.
Yeah, so there you see, they're all connected because they're all Germanic trees. And especially if you look at Old English, you see the similarities with Frisian.
Yes, exactly. In fact, non-English speakers, well, Germanic speakers, would actually pick up Old English much better. For example, with German speakers, I find that they would pick up Old English very fluently because Old English, like modern German, has three grammatical genders. You have a feminine, masculine, neuter. As well, you have the inflected case system, like nominative, accusative, genitive, dative. The only differences in that area is that Old English has a fifth inflected case, which is instrumental, which modern German doesn't have.
Okay, so that's like German then, which would make it easier for Germans to grasp this concept of the different genders in the language, which modern English doesn't have anymore, does it?
Exactly, yeah. And some of them are the same gender and the same spelling. So
that sounds far too confusing for me. And as Kevin was saying, it's quite easy for German people to learn Old English. It's also quite easy for Dutch people to learn Old English because obviously Dutch and German are fairly similar, almost mutually intelligible, some would argue. And then by definition, if it's easy for Dutch speakers, it can also be quite easy for people who speak languages that came from Dutch. So, for example, Luxembourgish or Afrikaans, which was spoken by the descendants of Dutch settlers in South Africa, as well as Flemish, which is the variant of Dutch spoken in the area of Flanders in Belgium. And also it's quite easy for people who speak languages that come from German. So, for example, people living in Austria or Switzerland or the German part of Belgium, as well as languages like Yiddish, which is essentially a Germanic language with bits of Hebrew spread in. Alright, so this has been our collaboration video on Old English. Have you enjoyed this? Would you like to see more of this, and would you like to see more of Kevin? I know I definitely would, because he's a very interesting guy and knows a lot about Old English and old languages. So please leave your opinions below in the comment section and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, but importantly to Kevin's channel as well, which you can do by clicking right here. If you're into old languages, linguistics and history, then definitely I would recommend you click down there to find Kevin's channel. Thanks very much for being with us, Kevin. It's been a really good experience.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. If you want to come back, and if the subscribers will have you, then we'll definitely have you back on the show.
Definitely.
Alright, okay, so it's goodbye from me, goodbye from Kevin.
What's up, your hall, everyone?
Yeah, where's at your hall?